It's time now for the Kill the Can podcast.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Kill the Can podcast. I hope you are well. It hasn't been too terribly long. It's been longer than I would have hoped. So I recorded the last episode of the podcast about 4 weeks ago. I recorded that episode on January 30th. And as I sit here today, it's on March 4th. So that's not nearly as often as I would have hoped. I've got a couple things I wanted to chat about tonight, and I'm not sure kind of exactly how this is going to work. And I think you'll kind of understand once I get into it. But I was having a conversation on social media on one of the platforms, and this concept of the idea of, or the word addict came into question. And I used that word, and I used the word addictive, an addict. I believe what the specific phraseology that I used was addict speak. And this particular user took umbrage with my choice of words. And I really was kind of taken aback by that, because I've always been open and honest about my addiction to nicotine. And I don't think that that's a dirty word or a negative word at all. And this particular person, apparently, if they are telling the truth, has a problem with this word. And I'm going to read you some of the back and forth here. And I'm purposely not saying the person's name, and I'm purposely not saying which particular platform this was on. Only not because I'm looking to hide anything, because you know, if you can certainly kind of go back through my mentions and figure it out. But it's less about the platform, and it's less about the person or the account, and it's more about kind of what was being discussed. And so I'm really just kind of putting this out there to see if I can kind of work through it in my mind. And if there's any sort of feedback that I can get from the Kill the Can community about this, I would really appreciate it as well. So and I'm going to kind of be jumping around a little bit just because of the way this particular platform works. And so it's not, you can't really just kind of read from beginning to end. So it started out, so for those of you that don't know, I will actually go and every single day, I will go to the main Kill the Can website, and I will review posts that were made on that day over the years. So today is, as I mentioned, March the 4th. And so every day I will go back and I will look at any post that has been posted to the main site on March the 4th in this case. So as an example, in 2025, I posted an episode of the podcast, which was episode number 51. In 2021, I posted a review of Cannadips CBD infused pouches. In 2020, we had a Ask the Expert host, a chat. In 2019, there was a Hall of Fame speech. In 2016, there was a quitter meet photo with Boss Hogg and Chris TK 1942, and et cetera, et cetera. So on this particular day, I reposted an article from 2015. And the name of the article, which was posted on Kill the Can in 2015, was "Are e-cigarettes becoming cool?" ? And when I reshared this article, I said, article from 2015, spoiler alert, the answer is no. And again, I was kind of quoting the "Are cigarettes becoming cool?" So I'm saying, when I posted this a month ago, spoiler alert, no, they're not becoming cool. But again, I led this particular interaction with the fact that it was from 2015. And this guy wrote back and he said, the phrase smoking e-cigarettes is Orwellian doublespeak, a tactic to demonize safer alternatives to deadly cigarettes. The correct word is vaping. And it's time to correct a major public misperception. Nicotine vaping has very little to do with teens or youth. To which I responded, hence the reason I led with the fact that the article was from 2015. That said, it doesn't change the fact that these things, regardless of what you call them, are the antithesis of, quote, cool. He wrote back and he said, and this is kind of where it started to go off the rails a little bit. He wrote back and he said, as you may guess, I don't care what's cool. I care what helps people quit smoking. To prevent 490,000 U.S. smoking-related deaths every year and 8 million deaths every year worldwide. So for a little bit of context, and I probably should have led with this, this is an account that suggests that he is a PhD and he works in the, I'll call it the harm prevention space. He is a huge vaping advocate, and he is always, all of his content always is slanted in the very pro vaping context with the idea of to help people quit smoking. So that's the context that he's always sharing stuff. And this guy and I, we have gone back and forth several times over the years, particularly about my stance about 100% nicotine free. And it typically starts out relatively friendly, at least on my part. You know, when I say things to the effect of, anybody can quit nicotine. You just got to want it. And, it's not impossible to quit. All of the things that you've heard me say and we kind of preach at Kill the Can. And this guy always comes back with, well, yeah, but there are so many people that can't quit smoking without vaping. And again, my response is there's nobody that can't quit smoking. So anyways, that's for a little bit of context. So back to this thread. And again, remember, he says, I don't care what's cool. And I respond, I said, for sure. I only bring up cool because that's what was in the title of the article. And while we've had this conversation multiple times, quitting doesn't require another tool. It requires dedication and will. That is cool. Cheers. And he fires back with, some people can quit smoking with dedication and will. Decades of research shows only 5% can do that cold turkey. If they use a nicotine patch or gum, that increases to 9%, and 9 in 10 still fail. As you know, I see people who smoke as people who need all options to quit. And this is where, again, this is where the conversation kind of starts to go off the rails. And this is what I really take exception to when he tries to come at me and say that nicotine patches or gums are such an awesome quit aid because people can't quit without them. And again, I think we at Kill the Can have unequivocally proven that that's just not the case. So I responded back and I said, sorry, this is nothing but addict speak. All people can quit smoking with dedication and will. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's 100% doable. Anybody suggesting otherwise is looking to sell something. And again, that might have been a little bit of a shot, but at that point I was getting a little bit irritated, and I genuinely believe that. So he wrote back, and again, I apologize. This is kind of a long thread, and I really do hope that this podcast isn't going to kind of go off the rails. I'm hoping that I'm explaining to you guys, kind of what's going on. So he writes back and he says, the American Psychiatric Association rejected and dropped words like addict and addiction in 2013 because those words are stigmatizing, and stigma is a harm. For some reason, these words linger on in tobacco control. I assume because one of its top health interventions is stigma. And again, I'm not putting, I really don't want to put words in his mouth, but that to me was kind of crazy. And so I responded with, and this is where I was starting to really get fired up. I remember it very vividly. I responded with, holy shit, this is ridiculous. Words like addict and addiction are stigmatizing. Please don't tell me you buy into this. I thought you were better than that. And again, I say that with the context of this guy suggests that he is a PhD. He writes back, 4 decades of research on smoking cessation shows only 5% of people who smoke cigarettes can quit cold turkey, 1 in 20. On average, those who succeed tried and failed 25 times before they finally quit. Think that through. Quit, fail, and feel like a failure. Quit, fail, repeat. And so he not just this guy, but I see this a lot where this is one of those tactics, in my opinion, where people will start to use these stats, 1 in 25% of people, this, that, and the other thing, right? And I'm not even suggesting that these stats are wrong, but I do think that they're a little bit misleading. And I also, again, as I said earlier, I'm not sure how valid they are because I'm fully of the belief that if you want to quit nicotine, you can quit nicotine, whether that's vaping nicotine, smoking it, chewing it, using a nicotine pouch, those kind of things. So back to this thread, I said, it's that sort of thinking that has led to the rise in these, quote, quit aids. Everyone is looking for an easy way out. It's not that people, quote, can't quit. Again, that's addict speak. Quitting nicotine is possible for anyone. And then this, he really pissed me off. He says, and this is part of the reason I don't typically engage on social media all that often, but he said, I enjoy my morning coffee. There's no question caffeine is dependence forming. No harm, so no one cares. You seem to think that nicotine itself is as harmful as cigarettes. That's bonkers. If cigarettes contained caffeine, we would have a demonized caffeine and no one would care about nicotine. To which I responded, don't put words in my mouth. I literally never said nicotine is as harmful as cigarettes. Again, this is one of these tactics that people will come after me and they will call me a, all sorts of things because they think I'm taking this kind of very particular stance on Nick. And again, I have no problem with that. Um, I was just absolutely though blown away by this idea that we can't even use the words addict or addictive anymore. Those are stigmatizing. Those are triggering. I was, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I've just been living in a bubble for all of these years, but that really surprised me. So I would love to hear from you. If I'm wrong, I will fully admit it. Because I use terms like addict and I'm an addict and I'm addicted and addictive. I use these terms regularly when I refer to my situation, when I refer to the people at Kill the Can. I feel very comfortable in saying we are addicts. We are addicted to nicotine. We are addicted to these products. And I think that that is a very accurate way to talk about our addiction. And I don't feel any stigma around it. And I don't feel bad about it. And I don't feel, um, I'm not embarrassed by it. And again, at least on this interaction on social media, that's what this guy is suggesting. And I was just absolutely blown away by this. And I would love to hear from you. Am I wrong? Am I off base? And I guess, am I wrong in my suggestion that anybody can quit nicotine if they want to? I really don't think I am, but I would love to hear from you. Let me know. All right. So I actually went back and I found some more of this conversation and I wanted to read this to you and provide some additional commentary here. So this is he and I got into it about the word addicting and addict. And so he said, oh God, this was just absolutely crazy. I'm getting all fired up again, just thinking about it. So again, I said, sorry, this is nothing but addict speak. All people can quit smoking with dedication and will. I'm not saying it's easy, but it is 100% doable. Anyone suggesting otherwise is looking to sell something. And he said, if I'm Italian, would you call me a wop? If I'm Chinese, would you call me a chink? I use caffeine and nicotine. Why do you think it's okay to call me an addict? It's offensive. I did not realize you were such a zealot. And I said, holy shit, you're literally conflating racial slurs with the word addict. We're done here. You're too bought into your ideology to have a rational conversation. And he responded, yes, I'm telling you the word addict is exactly as hurtful and stigmatizing as a racial slur. The preferred terms now are people who use drugs, PWUD, and substance use disorder. Tobacco control never got the memo, which is strange because nicotine is far less harmful than opioids or alcohol. To which I responded, well, this is the dumbest thing I've read in a long time. And he responded, then you clearly don't know anyone who smokes cigarettes or anyone aside from me who has quit smoking by vaping and experienced significant health improvements. And you probably never taught healthcare ethics to med students in a medical school as I did. We are not on the same page. Um, th- this is crazy to me. And for the record, no, I did not teach healthcare ethics. I certainly know people who quit smoking cigarettes. I certainly know thousands and thousands of people who have quit nicotine completely. I'm not sure how many of those people this guy knows. He said no public health experts, which I am not one of, by the way, who works with people who use opioids call them addicts. Tobacco control is stuck in the past. It clings to archaic 20th century terms, though nicotine is far less harmful. Definitions of the discarded term addictive require dependence and significant harm. And I responded, just so I'm clear, for something to be addictive, it's a combination of requiring dependence and causing significant harm. And you're suggesting that nicotine products don't meet these requirements, so they aren't addictive. So that's what he's saying. He's saying vaping products and nicotine pouches are not, effectively, he's saying they're not addictive. And he says addictive is a stigmatizing, archaic term, like lunatic asylum. The American Psychiatric Association dropped that word in 2013. They now use substance use disorder. By old definitions, nicotine is dependence forming but does not cause significant harm, so it is not addictive. That right there blew me away. He said, and again, this is presumably a PhD who, by his own account, is teaching people how to quit. And he said, nicotine is dependence forming, but does not cause significant harm, so it's not addictive. So he's splitting hairs here between the terms dependence forming and addictive. And then he shares with me a screenshot, presumably, I'm assuming he didn't doctor it. I have no reason to believe he did, from the CDC, where it says nicotine itself does not cause cancer, heart or lung disease, etc., etc. And then I said, the fact that you're trying to argue that nicotine is not addictive is the funniest thing I've seen today. And then I said, and this was interesting. So I said, the fact that you're trying to argue that nicotine is not addictive is the funniest thing I've seen today. And he responded with, nicotine does not fit the definition of that archaic 20th century term. It's like you've been brainwashed by the past 40 years of demonizing nicotine. If cigarettes delivered caffeine, we would have demonized that. Addiction equals dependence and significant harm. And this was where the conversation ended. And this is the last time I've interacted with this person, and candidly, the last time I will. I said, serious question. What is your experience with nicotine use? How long did you smoke, dip, snooze, vape, etc.? And he responded, I'm tired of this conversation. Please leave me alone. To which I said, consider it done. You will not hear from me again. And I have stuck to that, and I will stick to that. With the exception of on this podcast. And again, I'm not saying who it was or even what platform it was on. Again, I just can't wrap my mind around somebody trying to do kind of mental gymnastics and try to tell me that nicotine is not addictive. And so I guess maybe it's my problem. Maybe I'm not up on the latest literature. Maybe I'm not up on what we're calling things these days. I understand that I'm rough around the edges. But this really kind of reeks of the same kind of wordsmithing where, and I really don't even want to go down this path, but like where people are no longer referring to, pedophiles, but they're referring to, minor attracted persons. That kind of stuff to me is ridiculous. And again, I don't want to conflate the two issues, but I guess words matter, right? And for somebody to try to suggest to me that referring to myself as an addict or a recovering addict or nicotine as an addictive property, I had a really hard time with that. So, like I said, let me know if I'm wrong. I would love to hear from you. That's all I got. I'm still at a loss. As I've revisited this, I'm at a loss. Cheers, Queers.
Join us again next time for another edition of the Kill the Can podcast.